we're still talking about, still gleaning, still learning from Father Abraham. We're in chapter 18. We're not going to get through the full chapter today. But God has spoken the promise yet again to Abraham and Sarah. Every time he speaks it, it gets broader and more expansive, but at the same time it gets more specific. See, only God can broaden something and narrow it down at the same time. Only God can do that. If I try to do that, it's just going to be all kind of confusing and ugly. But see, only God can really do that. Because it broadened in that he added land to it. It broadened because he said, as numerous as the dust. That's broadening. But then, as every time he spoke it, it got narrower. Because he spoke it, he would speak it, your seed. Then now finally he got it down to, and Sarah shall have a child. I will bring you a seed through Sarah. Because the previous time when he spoke it, in Sarah's impatient frustration at the fact that it wasn't happening yet, gave her room for maybe. Because she wasn't looking at God for being God who he is. She forgot to sing He's Able. Forgot to sing every praise is due our. But see, there was that room for maybe. Maybe it may be that Hagar. That I'll have my son through Hagar. Maybe God's promise for me is going to come through this. But then he speaks. Now he's spoken. He spoke. He changed Abram's name to Abraham. He changed Sarah's name from Sarai to Sarah. And for her, in that speaking, in that name change, she was a new person. She was now able. She's now fruitful. She's now ready to receive. Ready to become what it is God has promised. So here in chapter 18, we have a furtherance. A narrowing down, again, an affirmative repetition of the promise. I'm going to read through verses 1 through 15, and again, we'll just walk through it. It says, and the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre, and he sat in the tent, door in the heat of the day, and he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. When he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door, and he bowed himself toward the ground and said, my Lord, if now I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. Let a little water, I pray thee, be fetched, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. And I will fetch a morsel of bread, and comfort ye your hearts. After that ye shall pass on. For therefore are ye come to your servant. And they said, do as thou hast said. And Abram hastened into the tent and unto Sarah, and said, make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes upon the hearth. And Abram ran unto the herd and fetched the calf, tender and good, and he gave it unto a young man, and he hasted to dress it. And he took butter and milk, and the calf which he had dressed, and he set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree, and they did eat. Abram knows how to entertain. He knows how to receive a guest. That's the heart of a servant. This man has great wealth. He has manservants. He has maidservants. He has all these different people who could have been doing all of this. But as Abram was sitting in the day, the Lord appeared to him, verse 1, and in the plains of Mamre, And as he sat in the tent in the heat of the day, God already is appearing to him. So then Abram looks up and he sees three men. One of these men is Jesus. One of these men is Jesus. Again, a pre-incarnate manifestation of Jesus. And there has to be a recognition of the authority. It has to be a recognition of, because he's saying, my Lord. And it's the reverential, capital L, my Lord. And Abram he's got all these servants. He's not barking out orders. Go get this, go get that. Only real person he gave an order to was Sarah. Just make 3, measures of meat, a fine meal, knead it, and make cakes upon the hearth. You take care of this, I got everything else. But he's not barking to his servants to help take care of these. He says, I got this. I'm doing this. 99-year-old Abram is running around making sure that these guests have what it is that they need. He hastened unto the tent. He rushed in there. And then it says, he ran unto the herd and fetched the calf. He ran. Abram is running, trying to take care of things for these guests. The old man is running and getting it done. So he's going all out. He's going all out to make sure. And he gets a good and tender young calf to have it dressed for them. And he has them rested under the tree, and they did eat. So Abram's demonstrating a heart of servanthood. He's demonstrating that he, in everything that he has, he's still at heart a servant. He's still at heart a servant. Verse 5, he says, and I will fetch ye a morsel of bread, and comfort ye your hearts. After that ye shall pass on, for therefore you are come unto your servant. So he's showing himself and speaking himself. He's showing himself to have that servant heart. Even though he had plenty of maid servants, plenty of manservants, plenty of other people who he could have just laid, could have sat in the door, could have hung out, chilling, talking with them. But he himself took care of it. He did it. There was a humility there. There's a meekness there. That his possessions didn't have him. That who he was in God. That humility of remembering who he wasn't above doing any of that. Even though he had plenty of people who could have taken care of it, he himself, he handled all of that himself. Verse 9 says, and they said unto him, where is Sarah thy wife? And he said, behold, in the tent. And he just answered. It didn't strike Abram anything strange that they asked where Sarah, his wife, was by name. And he hadn't seen any of them before. It didn't strike him as strange. Because he knew whose presence he was in. He knew he was in the presence of not just regular men. He had to have recognized that this was Christ. At the bare minimum, he knew that they were angels, that he was entertaining. At the bare minimum, he knew that because it didn't seem strange to him. And so, verse 10, he says, and I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life, and lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son. And Sarah heard in the tent door, which was behind him. He says, I will return certainly unto thee according to the time of life, and lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son. And it's spoken one more time. Miss Sarah herself is going to have a son. And when he speaks it now, he's speaking that it is getting ready to happen. All the other times didn't present a time frame. The last time it was spoken, yep, he says, I will return in a year. Let's see. Yep, the conversation God had in chapter 17, verse 21. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time next year. So God is saying, God spoke to Abram, it's about to go down. Now, Jesus comes, Jesus and these two angels, these three men, three unnamed men, they come and they're conversating with Abram. Where's Sarah? She's in the tent. He says, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life. According to the time of life. The other versions don't phrase it that way. According to the time of life. They say in a year, about this time next year, according to the time of life. According to the time of life speaks to the conception and the gestation and the birth of the child. According to the time of life. So God has already spoken that around this time next year, Sarah's going to have a son. So now he's saying, I will certainly return to you according to the time of life. When you see me again, Isaac's going to be here. When you see me again, Sarah will have conceived, gestated, passed through all the trimesters, and given birth to the promise. So be ready. And Sarah heard him on the other side of the door. Now Abram and Sarah were old and well stricken in age. And it ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. Sarah was already barren. She was already barren. And it's saying that Sarah was after the manner of women. It's saying that even had she been able to bear children prior to that, now she's past childbearing age. Anyway. So now not only is she barren, but she's past regular childbearing age anyway. So, if you will, 2 strikes against her? In man's book. Yeah. Where she sits, she's got 2 strikes against her. 3 because of Abraham's age. So basically, that's 3 strikes. You're out, inning over. Get ready to go take the field. You didn't produce a run. But see, God is speaking in direct contrast to that. He's speaking from what he already knows. He's speaking from what he has promised. He's speaking from already knowing that Isaac is coming. He's speaking from, again, Revelation. He's speaking to Genesis. God is speaking to them from what he already knows. When you see me again, I will certainly return to thee according to the time of life. That Sarah thy wife shall have a son. Verse 12, and Sarah laughed within herself, saying, after I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure? My Lord being old also. Now you come and speak that promise. Now, after it's too late, after the deadline. I was already barren, but now I'm even past. My body is past childbearing age. And the Lord said unto Abraham, verse 13, wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, shall I of a surety bear a child which am old? Shall I of a surety bear a child which am old? He didn't even confront Sarah at this point. God was talking to Abraham. Well, why did Sarah laugh? Why did Sarah laugh? Why is she doubting? Why is she questioning? Why is she not believing? In that he God could have gone on to say, am I not the same God that preserved her when you let her go to Pharaoh? Am I not the same God? Am I not the same God? Amen. Am I not the same God? Am I not? And the Lord said unto Abraham, wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, shall I of a surety bear a child which am old? Verse 14. Is anything too hard for the Lord? Is anything too hard for the Lord? I could stop right there and we would be good. Is anything too hard for the Lord? Now, this is life. This is what they've been dealing with. Sarah is 90, Abram is 100. Well, I think they're 89 and 99 at this point. And unchangeable life events have happened to them. Sarah was barren. And now, on top of that, she's past childbearing age. Abram is 13 years from having produced his last child. So, even in every effort up to that, it appears that he's done now. It appears that he's done. Sarah is barren. Sarah is now past childbearing age. But Sarah is not walking in the newness of the name. She's not standing on the fact that she's no longer Sarai. Sarai was barren. Sarai was past childbearing age. Sarah, when God spoke, is fruitful. Sarah is now ready to have. Sarah. Those in the physical. At the same time where Sarai was barren, at the same time where Sarai was past childbearing age, Sarah not yet spoken into existence, Sarai in the spiritual was ready to pop, pregnant with the promise, remember? Mm-hmm. Where she was physically barren, where she was physically unable, in the spirit she is pregnant and ready to pop. Where she's past her due date, where she's frustrated because the child within has not come out yet. The promise, pregnant with the promise, barren in the flesh, past childbearing age in the flesh, but in the spirit where God has spoken, in the spirit where God is operating, where she can't see anything going on, but she's experiencing based on the spiritual what does not appear to be happening in the physical. And she's speaking and operating on the physical, on what she knows. She knows that she's barren. She knows what she knows in the flesh, I'll say, as opposed to operating in what she knows God has spoken. And she heard God speak to Abram because she laughed. So God's not speaking to Abram in that inaudible voice. He's not speaking to Abram in a still inside kind of way, inside voice. He's speaking to Abram in an audible voice that Sarah, on the other side of the door of the tent, they're in a tent, canvas and all of that, no thick walls or anything like that. So God is speaking to Abraham in a manner that Sarah can overhear. And she laughed. He says, is anything too hard from the Lord? Is anything too hard for the Lord? That by itself is a right there is a convicting reminder that no matter what our situation looks like, no matter what we know in the flesh, no matter what we know on paper, no matter what we know of our circumstance, no matter what we know of our situation, no matter what we know based on what we're going through, no matter what we know, is anything too hard for the Lord? This is Old Testament. We know that in the New Testament, God says, what is impossible for man is possible for God, right? We know that he says that. Jesus, that's post-cross, Jesus has come, he's suffered, he's been crucified, he was resurrected, he ascended into heaven, and he sits on the right, and he's advocating for us, and because of that, we know that God is able. We know that nothing is impossible for God, but back here, God speaks the promise. God he's done all these things for them. He's preserved Sarah in a compromising situation. And based on her age, based on everything she knows about the situation, she laughs at what God says. Based on everything she knows about the situation. So the situation outweighed God at that point for Sarah. Because God spoke, but the facts of the situation were weightier. You see, for us, no matter what the situation, as soon as God speaks, the scales ought to shift. In fact, if there was an actual scale, if God speaks one word, no matter how many years of situation, circumstance, no matter how many years of speaking, no matter how many years of no's, no matter how many years, no matter how many decades of whatever it is that's going against us or coming against us that we know, that we have experienced in God, when God speaks one word, one syllable, one letter, one breath, that so outweighs that it and it throws all of this off. Throws all of this off because it's no longer relevant. It no longer has power. It no longer has weight. It no longer has influence. It no longer has anything. It no longer has presence on the scale because God has spoken.
Yes.
His words outweigh life. His words outweigh his promise, what he speaks, what he says, what he intends. And he says, I know the thoughts I have for you. I know the thoughts I have, thoughts to prosper you and not harm you. That the situation that you are in, the situation that you are going into is going to be for your good. He spoke Romans 8:28 to them before they were even in the hard situation.
Yeah.
He stands in Revelation and he speaks Romans into Genesis. And he's doing that with us. He's standing in Revelation, speaking Romans 8:28 into our lives. He's doing that for us. He's saying that no matter what it is you're going through, I know the end that I am bringing you to. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil because you are with me. Not because it's easy. Because the valley of the shadow of death is not an easy place. The easy place was the green pastures that we were laying in. The easy place was the still waters where he restored my soul. Those were the easy places. There was no declaration of, I will fear no evil. Why? Because there was no need to fear evil in those places. In the valley of the shadow of death, that was the place where we could begin to fear evil. But David chose not to fear evil. Because God was with him. That no matter what the situation, no matter what his geography, no matter what his situation, the circumstance was, I will fear no evil. He made a declaration, and in making that declaration, he was choosing not to fear evil. Fearing evil is a choice. Don't care what it looks like. Don't care what it feels like. Don't care what it sounds like. Don't care what it smells like. Fearing evil is still a choice. How do we know? Because when the mighty army of Israel was yielding to one giant, an entire army was afraid of one giant, and a young shepherd comes in and says, whoa, 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 he's speaking against God. Are we gonna allow that? We're cool with that? I'm not. I'm gonna get him. I know you're not talking about my God like that. I know what he's done for. I know you're not talking about my God like that. No, you're not. Oh no, you're not. And the king says, oh well, since you're going out there, if you're gonna go out there, the king was covering his own self. His concern really wasn't for David. He was covering himself. Because if David goes out there and that giant mauls David, then it's getting back to the king sent a child out to fight a giant. That giant mauled him. The king didn't do anything about it. So king's like, here, wear my armor. So nobody can say that I didn't do anything. Nobody can say that I sent you out unequipped, unprotected. But David said, no. You can't protect me from that giant. Because this wasn't made for me. This wasn't made for me. I'm going out with what was made for me. What was made for him was not armor. What was made for him was all that he had on. His tunic, his sandals, and all of his little shepherd boy clothing and all of that, and that slingshot. All the mighty weapons of war that he was surrounded with. He didn't take a spear. He didn't take a shield. He didn't go out there on a chariot. He had 5 stones. He had 5 stones. But it only took one. And he ran towards the giant. He didn't let his situation, he chose not to fear evil. Why? Because God was with him. How did he know God was with him? Because while he was tending sheep, he killed a lion and a bear. While he was tending sheep, while he was doing what his father told him to do. The same father who appeared to overlook him when the prophet was there to anoint a king. See, David didn't let any of that get him down. His father said, go tend the sheep. I ain't got to tend no sheep. I'm anointed to be king. You overlooked me in the first place. I don't have to listen to you. David didn't operate in any of that. David did not operate in any of that. I'm anointed to be king. Go tend those sheep. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And because God was with him, yes, the lion and the bear fell at his hand. And he goes, and the giant, now the giant is out there. Giant is bigger than a lion. Giant's bigger than a bear. But David knew that the God that was with him was greater than that giant. Was greater than that giant. See, if you picture, this is where to me the equivalency comes from, because that little boy that was in the back seat of the abductor's car, that situation was a giant. That situation was a giant. But he praised God. He said, my God is able. My God is bigger than this abductor. My God is bigger than these locked doors. My God is bigger than this car going in a place that I don't know. So I'm going to praise my God. Just like David said, no, I don't need your armor. Your armor can't protect me. My God who is with me, who's being slandered out there, we got this. And he ran towards the giant. He did not let the situation or the circumstance dictate or determine his emotions. He chose based on who God was. He chose based on who God was. Not just who God was, but who God was to him. him. That's why a lot of the songs in David says, my God, Almighty God, oh holy God, oh loving God, but my God, he's only taking onus of walking in the relationship that he had with God. It wasn't sonship yet, because Christ had not yet come. But that anointing that he had from the Lord, he was walking in that. He was walking in that. Now we come back. Back to Abram. Back to Sarah. Is anything too hard for the Lord? And this next line, at the appointed time, I will return unto thee according to the time of life. Saying it for the second time, according to thee, I will return according to the time of life. And Sarah will have a son. It's repeated now. And he's again speaking aloud. He's again speaking aloud. Verse 15, then Sarah denied, saying, I didn't laugh, because she was afraid. And he said, nay. Oh, but you did. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. A little bit of an exchange here going on. Why did she laugh? I'm coming back. And according to the time of life, Sarah will have a son. I will return at the appointed time, and Sarah will have a son. Sarah shall have a son. But I didn't laugh. Yeah, you did. No long extended conversation, no argument, no confrontation. But he's not accepting the answer. He's not accepting the answer. There's no rebuke. There's no contention. And there's no revocation of the promise. There's no disqualification from the promise. God knows the process. He's standing in revelation. He already knows everything that's going to happen. He knows his plan and his will is greater than our folly and our weakness. He allows our weaknesses. He allows all of that. That's why he allows us to go through pressure. That's why he allows us to go through hard times. Pressure creates diamonds. Pressure, hard times, trouble, trial, tribulation, squeezing creates diamonds. Fire, intensity, hard time, trial, tribulation purifies gold. Purifies, burns out the toxins, those metals that might be in there that aren't gold, making it non-homogeneous. Grapes have to be crushed to produce wine. Not an ounce of wine was ever produced by gently handling, rubbing. You don't polish grapes to get wine. You don't display grapes, strategically photograph them, dip them in oil so that they might be preserved, keep them out of parts. In fact, what makes wine grapes different from grocery grapes, the edible eating grapes, what makes them different is that we learned this because we went to wine country. See, and we took a little tour and learned a little something. What makes wine grapes, what makes the flavor of wine grapes more intense is because they grow under hard conditions. They don't grow under the easy conditions. The intense flavor, the intense flavor of the wine grape. If you eat a wine grape, it's like sour and bitter because it's not ready for consumption. The juice that's inside is not ready for consumption. It's got to be crushed, squeezed, take it and put together in the vat. And then once it's squeezed, it's still not ready because then it has to sit on a shelf and ferment over time. And then after it's been sitting up there for so long, they gotta go in and agitate it and rotate the barrel so that it doesn't settle, so that all the stuff doesn't settle, and you get all the stuff here and all of that there and all of that. It's got to be agitated. It's got to be rotated. The barrel has to be shaken. The barrel has to be rotated so that all the ingredients stay mixed together. And they have to do that every so often. It's got to be shaken up. It's got to be stirred. It's got to be agitated. So nothing of value is produced without a hard process. Nothing of value is produced without a hard process. See, the idea and the concept of Ishmael came out of frustration and impatience. Which is why he worked against the promise. Because the promise came through a process. The promise came through a process. But the work of the flesh, the factor of the flesh, could not overcome the product of the promise, because the product of the promise was a product of time. It was a product of pressure. It was a product of fire. It was a product of crushing and time. The filter of time. What the factor of the flesh could not overcome. That's why he had a head start in the physical. But he was conceived in the garden. Isaac was conceived in the garden. So time that produced. And that's why God allows us to go through the things that we go through. Because we're a part of his plan. We're a part of his plan. We're a part of the process of bringing out everything that he has for us. See, the product of the promise, we are products of the promise. We are producing according to God's word. We are producing according to what he has spoken. We are producing according to his plan for our lives. The devil's plots fail because they're not greater than the promise. The plot isn't greater than the promise. The plot isn't greater than the promise. The plot is intended to make us trip, make us fall. But the promise is intended to elevate us, to promote us to a position. The promise is intended to promote us to a position. That's why the plot fails. Because God knows the plot is coming. He's already prepared us for the plot by giving us purpose in his plan. We're on our way to becoming diamonds. We're on our way to becoming gold. We're on our way to becoming wine. Just like Isaac was on his way to becoming a sacrifice who would not die. A sacrifice who would not die. Like Jesus, although he did give up his life, he didn't stay dead. I want to get ahead of it all here because he's not even here yet. He's not even here yet. But he's on his way. He's on his way. And Sarah denied and said, I laughed not, for she was afraid. He said, nay, yeah, but you did laugh. But you did laugh. We have our moments. We have our moments. We have our moments when we know what God has spoken. And we think against it. We question it. That's equivalent to the laugh. she said, after I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure in my Lord being Lord also? In my Lord being Lord also? Is this really going to happen? Can this really happen now? Because of the situation and the circumstance are insurmountable by man. By all rights and accounts, impossible for man, for us to, be able to think on those terms. Just remember, is anything too hard for the Lord? Is anything too hard for the Lord? Remember his declaration, at the appointed time I will return according to the time of life, and Sarah will have a son. According to the time of life. In the time that it takes to conceive, gestate, and give birth to the son, I will return. I will return. I will return. We are all pregnant with the promise. We are all ready. But it's God's time. It's all in his time. Is anything too hard for God? At the appointed time. Remember, at the appointed time. At the appointed time. At the appointed time. I saw a cool t-shirt. It had a clock, but instead of numbers. And what I always like to say is, as far as God and time, if God had a watch, it would say right now. If it had if he had a clock on the wall or a calendar, it would all say now, 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 now. But it had a clock, but instead of numbers, it said God, 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 all the way around. Yeah, I'm gonna need one of those. I'm gonna need to get one of those. So when we're looking at our clock, and that when we're looking at our spiritual clock, because how they say, mothers have that maternal clock on the inside. Is that what it's called? Maternal time clock or whatever it is. What? I don't even remember now. But when we're looking at our spiritual clock, saying, Lord, when's it going to happen? Look at that clock and remember that every number on there says God. In fact, the big hand is God. That small hand, God. That third hand, second hand, the one that's always moving, says God. It says God. And here's the significance. Those other two hands, you don't necessarily see them moving all the time, because we don't always necessarily see God moving all the time. We look away and we look back, and the time has changed. They're in a different position. See? God is just like that. God is just like that. But then we remember the second hand is always moving. Tick, 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 tick. Because God is always moving. God is always moving. And that's because if we look and see each little second that makes up the minute, each little tick that makes up the second, and the seconds become the minutes, and every little hand that clicks off the minute, and eventually every minute is that hour that move. We don't sit and stare at the second hand, but we notice it moving all the time, because God is moving all the time. His second hand is moving all the time. We don't see the big hands moving all the time, but we notice when they change positions, which represents a different hour of the day. See, that's how God is. That's how God is. Keep your eyes on the clock. The clock says God. God is the clock. He's not governed by it like we are. He is. He is. We take all that. We got to remember that. God is the clock. That we don't sit and watch. But when we need to know what time it is, we need to know what hour of the day it is. We need to remember what hour of the day it is. Look at your God clock. He'll tell you what time it is. And if you're wondering, God, when's it going to happen? God, why hasn't it happened yet? When? At the appointed time. At the appointed. We have an appointment with God. We have an appointment with God. At the appointed time. We have an appointment with God. Amen?
Amen.
Amen. Give God some praise.